Have you ever really stopped to think about it?
Yeah.
That massive network connecting every single address in America, big cities, tiny rural spots.
That intricate dance of delivery, right?
Exactly. We just sort of take it for granted. But what if that whole system, the U.S. Postal Service, this like 250-year-old institution, what if it fundamentally changed?
You mean privatization?
Yeah, privatization. It's not just about stamps, is it? It's about the huge ripple effects on the lives of all those postal workers,
Yeah.
especially if they get hurt on the job.
You've hit on a really crucial point there. This whole question, it has these massive implications, not just for your mail, but for the millions delivering it, particularly around, workplace injury compensation. It's critical.
Which is exactly why we wanted to do this deep dive. Our goal here is to really unpack the arguments, for and against privatizing the USPS, and then, crucially, highlight what that could mean for postal workers' injury benefits.
And also shine a light on the resources out there for federal employees trying to navigate these, frankly, pretty complex systems.
All right. And to do that, we've dug into some really interesting stuff. We've got public statements from the new Postmaster General, insights from internal USPS reports, the union perspectives, naturally.
And even details on a specialized medical practice that's, really focused on helping these federal workers.
Yeah. So let's dive in. The big question right now seems to circle around this renewed push, particularly coming out of the Trump administration, looking at the USPS's structure.
Yeah, including talk about outright privatization for a service that's been around for centuries.
But here's where it gets really interesting, based on what we've seen. The new CEO and Postmaster General, David Steiner, he's actually come out publicly against privatization, quite strongly, too.
Oh, really? That's surprising given some of the initial reactions to his appointment.
Right. In his first week, he apparently told employees, and this is a direct quote, "I do not believe the Postal Service should be privatized or that it should become an appropriated part of the federal government."
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty definitive stance, especially from the top. He's basically backing the current structure.
Seems like it.
Hmm.
He's framing it as a strength, self-financing, independent, but with that public service mission. His stated aim is to justify and preserve our independence far into the future.
So through internal improvements, not by selling it off.
Exactly. And that position actually lines up with a lot of other people, employees, customer groups, many lawmakers. They all seem pretty strongly against privatization.
Well, the main argument against it is pretty clear, isn't it? That it could just gut the public service mission, that legal requirement to deliver to every address.
Yeah, could a private owner really justify keeping unprofitable rural routes open? Or would they just jack up rates outside the cities?
It's easy to see how that public service part could get sidelined for profit pretty quickly. You'd end up undermining that whole idea of the Postal Service binding the nation together. Lots of people could get left behind.
Steiner himself called the USPS a pillar of America's democracy and economic infrastructure. He seems to believe it has to stay nationwide, not just focused on profit.
Okay, but given his background, wasn't he on the FedEx board?
He was, and that's exactly why his appointment set off alarm bells with the unions. You had the letter carrier's president calling it an open invitation for corporate interests.
And the American Postal Workers Union, didn't they use that phrase?
Fox guarding the henhouse.
Yeah.
Because FedEx is a direct competitor, right?
Right. So there was this real fear he might just be paying lip service while secretly pushing for privatization.
But it seems like he's directly addressed those fears. He's doubled down on the public statements, promising to maintain USPS's role as an independent establishment of the executive branch, rejecting full privatization, emphasizing modernization without compromising those public duties.
So he's positioning himself as a defender, essentially, believing efficiency and innovation are the path forward, not selling it off.
That seems to be the message. But, like we said, for the actual workers, the backbone of the USPS, this isn't just some abstract policy debate, is it?
Absolutely not. When you talk about privatizing something this massive, the impact hits people directly, especially when it comes to something as vital as injury benefits.
Okay, let's unpack that. Privatizing the Postal Service. What are the specific legal and policy shifts for injured workers? They currently rely on the Office of Workers' Compensation Programs, right? OWCP.
Exactly, OWCP. Right now, USPS workers are federal employees when it comes to on-the-job injury benefits. That's under FECA, the Federal Employees Compensation Act.
And FECA covers a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. Around 2.6 million federal and postal employees total. It provides medical care, wage replacement, help getting back to work, the whole package.
And the USPS's share of that is significant.
It's huge. Get this, the USPS alone accounts for over half of all federal workers' comp cases, over 50%.
Wow. So the Postal Service reimburses the Department of Labor for those costs.
That's right. And it's a substantial number of people affected long term. Back in 2019, there were nearly 15,000 postal employees on the OWCP long-term disability rolls. Serious injuries, some getting benefits well into retirement.
Okay, so privatization happens. What changes? Let's start with new injuries, post-privatization.
Well, the big one is those workers likely wouldn't be federal employees anymore, so new injuries, probably not covered by FECA.
They'd fall under what, state workers' comp laws?
Most likely. State laws or maybe some kind of private plan set up by the new company, and those systems, well, they vary dramatically from state to state.
Okay, that's new injuries. What about people already on OWCP, those 15,000 people, for example?
That's where it gets legally complex. The thinking is their right to FECA benefits probably already vested under federal law, so they'd likely continue receiving them.
Likely, so it's not guaranteed.
Well, Congress could step in. As part of a privatization deal, they might enact special rules, maybe shift existing claimants to a private insurer or offer buyouts. The sources call this area legally sensitive.
And what about suing? Right now, FECA is the exclusive remedy, right? You generally can't sue the USPS for a work injury.
Correct. That protection is key. A privatized system would almost certainly want similar protection, but, if things were mishandled during a transition, it could potentially open the door to lawsuits. It's messy.
So zooming out to the policy level, the real human impact here seems huge. You're talking about potentially shifting people from a system like FECA to these state systems. How different are they really?
Profoundly different in many cases. FECA is generally seen as more generous and more open-ended.
How so?
Well, FECA offers wage loss pay at 66 to 75% of your salary, and importantly, it's tax-free. Plus, there's usually no arbitrary time limit. You get it as long as you're medically disabled from the injury.
Okay, and state systems.
They often have caps, like you only get wage benefits for a fixed number of years, maybe 5, 10, 15 years, or there's a maximum dollar amount you could ever receive.
I remember reading about that, states cutting back on workers' comp.
Exactly. There was a big investigation, I think ProPublica and NPR did it back in 2015. It found state legislatures were actively dismantling workers' comp protections.
With often disastrous consequences, wasn't that the phrase?
That's the one. Some states slashed permanent disability benefits by huge amounts, 50, even 70%. People were ending up in poverty when the benefits just stopped. Privatization could expose postal workers to that kind of system.
So that FECA shield is really significant.
It really is. Now, from USPS management's viewpoint, FECA can seem expensive because it's open-ended. They can't just decide to limit benefits or push for a settlement like a private company might.
And the Office of Inspector General, the OIG, they estimated savings, right?
Yeah.
If USPS acted more like the private sector.
Hundreds of millions annually, potentially, by doing things like, capping benefit duration, limiting payments, forcing people into specific doctor networks, or negotiating those lump sum settlements to close claims.
But let's translate that, those cost containment measures.
Yeah.
For the worker, that just means less support, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It means potentially lower pay replacement rates or those strict time limits kicking in, more hoops to jump through to get claims or treatments approved.
More pressure to just take a one-time payout instead of long-term support.
Exactly. And losing your choice of doctor, being forced to see company-picked physicians instead of your own trusted provider, which FECA allows.
What about those older workers, the ones already on long-term OWCP?
That's a big question mark. A private owner might see them as a liability. They could lobby Congress to shift those folks onto Social Security disability, maybe trying to avoid honoring job protections if they could return to light duty.
Or offer those buyouts you mentioned.
Potentially, yeah. Trading guaranteed long-term benefits for a lump sum. It's a tough spot for someone who's been relying on that support.
It's interesting, though, the unions argue the federal system is actually more efficient overall.
They do. They point to Department of Labor data showing FECA's admin costs are quite low, like only 4% of benefits paid out, lower than most state systems, apparently. And federal comp costs as a percentage of payroll are actually lower than in the private sector.
So the bottom line seems to be, privatization likely pushes new hires into less protective systems and could seriously jeopardize benefits for current injured workers, too. It's way more than just a financial tweak.
It really feels like it could undermine guarantees that have been in place for decades for that workforce.
Okay, so given all these challenges, the complexity of OWCP, navigating the system sounds incredibly daunting for an injured worker.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the question of lifelines. What kind of help is out there? And this is where we looked into that specialized medical practice, Restore Muscle and Joint.
Right, because they seem to focus specifically on helping federal workers, especially postal employees, deal with both the injury and the OWCP process.
Exactly. It's one thing to treat the injury, but navigating the bureaucracy is a whole other battle.
And that seems to be a key differentiator for Restore. The sources highlighted how carefully they aligned everything they do with OWCP guidelines, making sure their doctors are enrolled correctly, knowing the specific ECHO rules, the billing codes.
That level of compliance is crucial. Because if the paperwork isn't right, if the medical reports don't have the exact details OWCP needs, claims get delayed or denied. It's a nightmare for the worker.
And Restore actively helps with that, the claims management part.
Yeah, they really emphasize that. Helping file the initial injury forms the CA1 for traumatic injuries, CA2 for occupational diseases, getting pre-authorizations for treatment, writing those detailed medical narratives that OWCP requires.
I saw a quote from a patient saying, Restore understood OWCP rules. I never had to worry about a form or deadline. That's huge peace of mind.
Absolutely massive. Takes a huge weight off the injured employee.
So what kind of specific help are we talking about? We know postal workers get a lot of musculoskeletal injuries, right?
Yeah.
Backs, knees, shoulders, wrists.
Yeah, the physical demands are high. Lots of lifting, carrying, repetitive motion. So Restore offers, well, a pretty comprehensive suite of services for those typical injuries.
Like orthopedic care.
Yep.
Chiropractic.
Evaluations, treatments for spinal issues, joint cane, think herniated discs, chronic back pain. They do chiropractic adjustments, spinal decompression, even ergonomic counseling to prevent re-injury.
And physical therapy, too.
Right on site. And it's tailored to the job demands. Exercises for strength, flexibility, getting function back, plus education on working safely.
What about just managing the pain?
Comprehensive pain management, yeah. Using therapeutic modalities, supervised exercise. They really emphasize trying conservative, non-surgical options first. And they coordinate with specialists if needed.
But the really unique part seems to be the dedicated OWCP claims help.
That's what stands out. Assigning a claims specialist to help with all the forms CA7s for claiming compensation, CA17s for duty status reports.
Managing deadlines, medical updates, even talking to OWCP for the worker, like helping with continuation of pay.
Exactly. That COP benefit, getting your full pay for the first 45 days after a traumatic injury, is crucial while the claim gets sorted. They act as that intermediary.
And they help with getting back to work, too, modified duty.
Yeah, they actively communicate with both OWCP and the Postal Service to figure out safe, modified duty plans, tailoring accommodations to the specific postal job and the worker's limitations.
So it really is a full-spectrum approach. New claims, ongoing ones, even helping if a claim gets denied initially, from the injury itself to the rehab to all that paperwork.
That seems to be the model, covering all the bases.
So what makes a place like Restore really stand out in this very specific field? It sounds like deep expertise is key.
Definitely. Expertise in federal workers' comp is rare. Knowing all those specific forms, the detailed reports needed, the DOL fee schedules, it builds trust.
Like that patient quote, knowing the rules meant treatment was properly authorized and covered. No surprise bills.
Huge relief for the patient. And then there's the familiarity with postal work itself.
Right, understanding why a carrier's knee hurts or why a clerk gets carpal tunnel. It's not generic.
Exactly. They can tailor the rehab better. Patients feel understood because the clinic gets what their job actually involves day to day.
And the connection with the unions, like APWU, that must build a lot of credibility.
Immense credibility. Strong endorsements, positive word of mouth. It makes them a known quantity, the go-to place for postal workers in their area who get injured.
They also seem to focus on educating the patient.
Yeah, empowering them. Explaining the injury, explaining the OWCP steps in plain language, acting as an advocate, really. Not just treating, but supporting.
And finally, just the convenience. Having everything under one roof, Chiro, PT, the case manager.
Saves time, reduces confusion. Plus, knowing how to bill correctly under federal rules means the worker isn't getting stuck with unexpected costs for a legitimate claim. It should be fully covered.
So it really shows how a private practice can work effectively within that federal system.
Right.
By combining the medical side with that crucial administrative know-how.
Definitely. It's a specialized niche, but clearly a needed one for these injured federal employees.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. This whole debate over potentially privatizing the USPS, it really throws into sharp relief how much it could impact the protections for its workforce, especially those injured on the job.
It's a debate with huge implications, not just for a public service we all rely on, but for the people who actually make it happen every single day.
And it leaves you with this thought, doesn't it? If we value the idea of universal service, mail delivery, binding the nation together,
Then what does providing universal care for the people doing that delivery say about our real commitment to that workforce?
it's definitely something to chew on. We really encourage you, our listeners, to think about how we value these public services and the people behind them. Maybe even look into how workers' comp works in your own state. It's often more complex than we realize.
Thanks for joining us for this deep